Everyone. Welcome. My name is Jim Theophilus. I'm the executive director at NorthStar Advocates, and really welcome you here to the May 27th Bridge Coalition meeting, which we're really excited about. We invite you to introduce yourself in the chat, please. My pronouns are he, him, and again, really excited to be here. I do want to say this, and I say this, it'll be a trigger alert, a bit of a bummer on a certain level, but it's also exactly why you're here. So Thursday night, with some people, I thought some might be here today, they might join us, attended an event in Seattle at the Recovery High School for a young man named Jaden who had gone into inpatient treatment, got kicked out for poor behavior and relapsed and overdosed. And this was several years ago now, but they just are starting a scholarship fund for him. And then I got a call this morning, again, trigger alert. I wasn't prepared for it, that my niece was kicked out of her inpatient treatment program without anybody being notified. She apparently tested dirty, and I don't know. I haven't verified it all, but you can trust I'm going to. The story so far in the family is she was kicked out at 1:30 in the morning, and she OD'd the next day as well. So she passed away. And this is a niece who we've been, yeah. So what we're doing here today is important work. And to our providers, partners who are going to be implementing, and we'll talk about it as we go, 1929 bridge housing. Young people need a place to go when they get out of treatment. And so I thank you for being here from the bottom of my heart. This is why we're here. Those stories touch all of us. It's not just textbook stuff. And the intersection of behavioral health crisis and homelessness, particularly among young people of color and queer youth, is a crisis in my mind in this nation. And so, again, I share that not to bum you out, but to thank you for being here. We've got to do something. So with that, I will turn it over to V.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jim. Yeah, my heart goes out to you. Anyways, hi everyone. I'm V. I go by they, them, and I'm with NorthStar Advocates. I'm here to talk about the bridge scope and vision. So data shows that I think more now, but 75% of young people exiting behavior inpatient treatment return back into homelessness within 12 months of their exit. So the bridge has three scopes and visions to combat that. One is for information and resource sharing, and that we do that through cross-system coordination and training to developmentally and culturally learn best practices to support young people back into community. Two, we want to develop a return to community plan, and we use this terminology over discharge plans because of the negative connotations that follow these types of plans. Like the majority of time when people or young people are exited from behavioral inpatient treatment programs, they're going back into homelessness. So we don't want this to happen. And third is for advocacy, and we do this together through forms of systematic changes. And together we can identify policies and practices that can be reformed years down the line. Yeah. So with that, I will pass it on to Jim.
Yeah, thank you, V. So, just to build on V's before I talk a little bit about legislative update, I just want to say again, thank you, because the Bridge Coalition and the Bridge Housing, it was always that vision to bring these two together as one sort of intervention and strategy. So I'm just so excited that we're so close to making that be real. So as most of you know, the legislative session was really intense this year. Some things happened that I never thought I'd see. For example, programs, organizations like Treehouse. Some of you may know about Treehouse, educational advocates, just stellar programming. A third of their budget was slashed, $7.8 million. College Success Foundation is in the same situation. So it was really a tough year as legislators and the governor tried to figure out how to close a $16 billion deficit over the next 4 years. And they ended up coming up, we were all worried whether the governor would sign the budget, whether he would veto some aspects, which he did, about $25 million worth of programs he vetoed. But he did sign, whether you agree with it or not, he did sign all the revenue streams, AKA tax increases, B&O tax and others. And it was pretty close to balanced. Those who didn't want any tax increase say it's unbalanced. But when we use the word balanced, what that means is the 16 billion, there was about 7 to 7.5 in cuts and about the same amount or thereabouts in tax increases. So it was balanced in the sense it wasn't all cuts and it wasn't all tax increases, which is what the first budgets that came out from the Dems had a lot more taxes in there. Nevertheless, as it relates to our focus here, the Bridge Coalition was refunded and extended for 2 years, which, quite frankly, we call that in a $78 billion budget. This is 250,000. So it definitely qualifies as budget dust. But nevertheless, there were a lot of things that cost that much or less that got vetoed or not included. So I think it is a statement that legislators know what we're doing here and they see the vision of both the coalition and the housing. So the coalition was refunded. The housing, we asked for 2 additional houses. We did not get that, which we weren't surprised about. But what we did get is the funding for the 90-day houses that you're going to hear about today, both Spokane Excelsior and our newest partner, which I won't steal the thunder. That funding was considered written in the budget as ongoing, which is the magic word. Like anything can be cut at any time. There's never a 100% guarantee. But if it says ongoing and it's put in the maintenance level budget of the agency, in this case, Healthcare Authority, that is as safe as anything can get. So we feel really good about that. And then we had 2 other priorities at NorthStar, Homeless Prevention Diversion Fund. That was run through the Office of Homeless Youth for $5 million. And they cut that 1 million, which we expected that, and we'll come back next year and see if we can get it restored. But that's the program that I think is going to change how we do work in this state and across the nation. Instead of sending young people to shelters where they can be there for 3-4 months and still not have a long-term solution, the Homeless Prevention Diversion Fund does this really radical thing, which is ask the young person where they can live. And so for an average of $2,700 one time, of the 1,700 young people that have been served, over 90% remain in the same house as when they received the money. So it turns out when you ask them whether it's I can live with grandma, whether I can live with 3 friends, whatever it is, by asking them and not placing them, they end up being more committed and have a better sense of what works for them. So that money, we're glad that program will continue to exist. And then the last bill that we got passed, Community-Based Family Reconciliation Services, FRS. And traditionally, the FRS program is run by DCYF and its state social workers who, if I call and say, hey, my family's in crisis, my teenager is acting like a teenager, come help quick, they will send DCYF staff who are counselors. They have the training. The problem is many families did not want them as their counselor because of their affiliation with the government and CPS. Whereas now this new model that's being run out of Everett, Cocoon House, is actually community-based organization staff who go and do the counseling. And so we're hoping to change the direction, but we got that program funded. So all in all, our stuff that I think people are really aware of the behavioral health crisis and intersection of homelessness. So I think that also helped us. Does anyone get a program funded or not funded that they want to mention real quick before we turn it over? All right. I'll just say that we spent a lot of time down there in a way that at the beginning of session I did not expect to. And by a third of the way through, I knew to get our stuff in. It was so intense. Uh, and thank you again to the young people. We had 2 different days where young people came down and we met with legislators. So I'm proud of the NorthStar team to try and step up and keep our little crumbs that keep this thing going. Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Sierra.
Thank you, Jim. And I guess, hi, my name's Sierra. I am a consultant with NorthStar Advocates. And I actually, as you brought up, Jaden, I knew Jaden personally, and he was very much so, he was pretty young. I remember when I first met him, and he was definitely, I would say, very much so a bright spot in like the high school meeting that they have out in West Seattle that meets on Saturday. And it was pretty disappointing to come back this time around in my sobriety and hear that he had passed, because I just remember him being a really awesome person there. So, but that, I guess, like we were talking about like these having places for young people to go to is so important. And I am somebody who, I started this work with Jim back at Away Home Washington, and that would 2018, right? Yes, okay. And so, and as we know, like Excelsior is going to be doing our East Side house, and as of now, we have the Friends of Youth is going to be taking the West Side house. And at this point, I guess I will give them space to, if anyone from Friends of Youth wants to speak on that.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Good afternoon. My name is Modu. I go by Mo. I am the Senior Director for the Homeless Youth Services, and we'll be working in this project closely with the team at the Friends of Youth and with this community as well. So want to first acknowledge the amazing incredible advocacy that Jim and the team have led in one, securing the funding, but also two, just presenting the case that this is the need, because we do know that in the legislative processes, there's always a competition on salient concerns, and to get a project ongoing acknowledgement in policy spaces is just a testament of the amount of incredible hard work that have been put into that. So thank you all for what you do. I'm here today with my colleague, Rachel. Rachel is our senior manager for grants, and have also been very involved in the design and in the pursuit of this contract. So the Friends of Youth, as you all know, we serve young people in the East Side. And often when we say the East Side, that's where our service location hubs are. But we know that young people do come across the bridge to seek for services, and it's not a requirement that you have to be in the East Side cities to be served. Anybody who comes to us, doesn't matter how you come to us, we found you, you found, or somebody sent you through us. We just want to make sure that nothing but all the good things happen to you. And this program was just an alignment of need that we have. And as Jim would said, that often we have clients who have who have a unique need, either being transitioning out of an inpatient treatment or from treatment sites, and then hospitals or treatment centers often just put them in an Uber ride and then drop them in our youth center. And our youth center is designed to meet that need. Our staff are equipped to respond to that need, and then the young person is not also set to be successful in those spaces. So that does nothing but an entire system failure. So this will be an opportunity to just intentionally ensure that we are creating services whereby the employees are prepared to be successful. Clients who are kind of young people who are coming into a space that was designed for them or with them, and then also the system is offering that supportive services. So this will be both mental health together with housing and other supportive services in place to promote stability. We are still in the design stage, and then we will be working with our partners in Spokane, who have at least been a couple of miles ahead with us in this process. Also learn from their lesson to see their process and to see what we can adapt in that as well. So look forward to the collaboration. I will have my colleague Rachel CS details about the grant status, but for us at the program level, we are building in that institutional framework to start and roll out the program as soon as possible. Rachel?
Hi, everyone. Rachel Bergman, Senior Manager of Grants here at Friends of Youth. I would just echo a lot of what Mo shared. We're really excited to be a part of this work and looking forward to continued collaboration with Bridge Collaborative, HCA, and our partners in Spokane. We're currently starting to work with HCA and move through their processes. So we are working closely with Leslie and Rachel Baxter over there. From our team, I'll be handling sort of the more compliance and contract stuff, and then Mo and then our senior director who oversees all of our behavioral health work will be heavily involved as well. So nice to see you all this afternoon. I hope you're doing well and enjoying the sun, and I can hand it back over.
Great. Thank you so much. Jim, I'm going to just step in because I'll introduce Lauren, who doesn't really need an introduction, but I do want to just say how excited we are on behalf of NorthStar and this whole coalition to kind of have the trifecta of both the East Side and the West Side. And then as we work together with the coalition moving forward, really, really looking forward to see what we all do collaboratively. So excited. You guys are the ones, and we look forward to continue to working with you. Speaking of which, I'm going to ask Miss Lauren. Lauren, from Excelsior. I know you may not have a lot of updates, but if you would just want to introduce yourself and give what updates you have on Excelsior, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here and see everyone and see our partners on the West Side. It's great to hear about y'all, and I know we'll be meeting in the future. I'm the VP of Operations at Excelsior. I'm also the Transition Age Youth Administrator. And so we're also standing up some things. I do have kind of a brief update for everyone. I recently met with NorthStar, met with Sarah, just to kind of deepen our alignment on key aspects of the program. The discussion really centered on our commitment to incorporate young people's feedback and voice in the program design. We're discussing and exploring opportunities to set up a more focus group sensing sessions around the program design, just to ensure that there's continued feedback into our approach. The other thing that we're focusing in on right now is just a training review. We're looking over the trainings that we currently have in place for staff and preparing a summary for NorthStar so we can kind of see what overlaps and see opportunities for enhancements for staff development, particularly around housing support and trauma-informed care and peer-informed practices. Another key thing that we're in right now is hiring staff, but some core staff like the care coordinator, who's very focused on housing support and resources. We're in interview processes right now, and we're really emphasizing those relational skills and the lived experience so that it kind of matches our approach in supporting individuals in this program. And the last thing I'll say in terms of progress too is just that space preparation. We've ordered some basic furnishings like beds and personal storage items and some comfortable seating. That takes a few weeks to arrive, but we're getting those things in motion just so that we can, create a warm, comfortable environment for individuals that are staying with us. So it's kind of a brief overview, update of where we're at. There's continued work, meeting with HCA, continuing to meet with NorthStar as we stand this up.
Might help if I come off mute. Thank you, Lauren. Before I introduce our lived experience panel, I just want to open it up to any of the participants. If anybody has questions for Laura or Mo or Rachel, just any questions. And I'm monitoring the chat. And if not, doesn't look like we have any right now. This is really informal, but I did want to open the floor for our bridge steering committee. And that's our young adult lived experts that come together, and they really do help spearhead a lot of this work, training topics, providers, a lot of the legislative work we've done, and the input in the design of the 1929 bridge housing. And so anybody that wants to come on and kind of have a conversation about what this process has been, I want to open the floor for our lived experience experts to kind of have a few minutes to talk about the process. MJ, I see that you've got some noise happening in the background, so you know what? I'm going to just put VM coming for you right off the bat, and then we can popcorn it around.
Of course. Just kidding. I'm happy to talk about this. I've been NorthStar for like 2 years, and then just witnessing it from the beginning to the like till now it's like, how do I say this? Like, it's amazing because we all know that in the nonprofit world, everything to put things into place takes so long. So like to finally make it here and have 2 housing providers that seem like, how do I say it? You all seem very awesome. And I'm so excited to work with y'all. Like, we made it. I think we're here. And this is something that was so needed. Like when I exited inpatient myself, I wasn't set up for success and I returned back into homelessness. So if I were to go back in time and this program existed, I wouldn't have returned back into homelessness because I would have like the resources and the skills that I've learned within those 90 days to be able to take care of myself outside, back in the community. So, and I would have support systems in place. But yeah, I can go on about this forever, but I'm just really happy we're here. And yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much, V. Sierra or MJ, do either of you want to say anything? Oh, Sierra, are you talking or not?
I am.
I'm currently
Can you hear me?
speaking 100%.
Oh, Siri is trying to talk. My phone, by the way. That's what that is.
All right. Yeah, I just had to turn my AC off. I was just really thinking about this, like, sorry, and now my dog gets barked. Maisie. So I think it's really cool to actually see this process like fully come from beginning to end. And I was really thinking about how useful this is going to be. Because I think about like the very first time I went to treatment, back in 2015. And my case manager at the Orion Center actually was one that kind of worked with me to get my assessment done and to get me into a spot, as along with Johnny Oda as well. Was a big part of that for me. And I remember at the time, like my case manager, basically like once we got my assessment done and like she knew that like I was going to treatment, we found a spot for me. Like they basically said that I had like a couple days or something like that. And my case manager was like, "Okay, you're not allowed to leave here for those like few days." And like I was like, if I would have had the like, if I would have left, I don't think I would have actually gone to treatment at that point. And it was something like exiting treatment on both occasions that I went to treatment. I didn't really have a place to call home. I was talking with someone about that the other day, like especially last night. Actually, I was talking to the staff here in my building about the importance of there being somewhere for young people to go to, because when I train of thought's kind of everywhere. When I went to treatment the second time, I was out in Kirkland and was just kind of like middle of the day. As soon as it ended, they just kind of were like, "Your time's up. Here's your certificate of completion. Here's your belongings back that we held," and kind of pushed me out the door. And it was like, I think back on that, and it was like, you know, I had no working phone, had no money to my name, like and had just been pretty much in a space for the prior 2 weeks. That was a really like sheltered environment, and to be kind of thrown out to the world was really scary, and really difficult. And I mean, as many people know, like my story, I've been in and out of the rooms, and it having somewhere stable when I was younger would have helped a lot for me. Because now that I'm living currently in a recovery focused building, it's made it so much easier and so much healthier environment for me. I've been able to like really pull myself out of what was my community and start making community within the community of people here. So I'm really looking forward to seeing these houses get up and running.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I do see the chat. We have quite a few comments in the chat from young people. And MJ, I'll go ahead and read yours if it's okay if you can't talk right now because of the noise. But MJ said the process has been amazing. I love that we now have providers from an idea to an action to services. We know the importance is wide reaching, and thank you for being a part of this work. And then we had other young people that are part of NorthStar that just said they agree to that. And yeah, I also, while I am not a young person anymore, I do have the lived experience as an individual when I was young going through inpatient treatment. And I always say this, Jim's heard me say this, and if you worked with me, if I hadn't had a mother, I had the privilege of having a really active mom who saved my life truly. Like I remember I had access to one of the quote unquote best treatment options in the United States, which AKA is like a lot of money for my family and not great practices. And after 30 days, if I had gone home and had not had my mom, I would 100% not be here and would have died because I was a heavy IV heroin user. And so I just feel like the timeliness of this program cannot be understated, particularly with the fentanyl crisis that we're all in. And as we know, you know, that 24 to 48 hours post inpatient for opioid users is one of the most dangerous times in a young person's recovery journey. And it's more dangerous actually if they go to inpatient without a stable plan afterwards, or more risk of dying from an opioid if they had not really stepped into the door from the first place without that really stable transition. And I also say that from the hat of a provider. I worked in inpatient for almost a decade. You know, so I was heavily ingrained in the inpatient behavioral health system. And, you know, the thing that broke my heart time and time again was you can try and provide the best services you can try and support your clients, but at the end of the day, I think we all know, if we're really honest, that revolving door and having such a sheltered environment for 28 days, if you're lucky to get 40 days of authorization, doesn't actually make the long-term changes that we really wish it would. So being able to be a part with Jim and young people and all of you to build a more culturally and developmentally appropriate system that actually addresses the gaps from a system approach, I feel like is really groundbreaking. And I look forward to see where we all collectively bring this thing, because I think the impact is going to be very real. So just full circle moment. So happy to be here. And with that, I'll open. Jim, I don't know if you have any comments or.
I just want to really invite folks, and I think we'll be having more of these kind of generative conversations. One of the things when we talked at the planning meeting for this meeting, the steering committee, is the number of different, what I'll just call tensions that providers are going to face. This is going to be really hard work. This is you're meeting young people at a very complicated place. Having done a lot of residential care work in my day, I always felt like I had a target on my chest because I knew every young person coming in the door had already had 50 million do-gooders in their life, counselors, case managers, foster parents, who always started by, I care so much about you, and this is the last place you'll have to be. And it's like, wow, that almost is trauma triggering because they've heard it so much. So, but we were talking about the tensions, and that was one of them. How do you relationship build with young people? when you also know the maximum they will be there is 90 days. This isn't I mean, the idea of the bridge is to strengthen their recovery, whatever that means to them, but also help them get to their next best place, wherever that is. It might even be a different city. And then we were talking about, well, what if Jim has been there 50 days, but he has a place he could go live, and Sarah is in a bed, an inpatient, and they're going to discharge her tomorrow. Do you push Jim to say, hey, you got a bed, you should go do that, when Jim's saying, I want a couple more days here for my recovery? I think there's going to be a lot of those really challenging human things where there's really no right answer, but it'll be important for us. And I hope that's NorthStar's role, is to help us all think about those things ahead of time, but also what are our decision matrix. So you might have to look at Jim and say, look, if you don't take that bed that you have, and you could have went there last week, it's great to let you be here an extra couple weeks, but now we're in a place that Sarah could be discharged back to the streets if we don't open a bed here. So the whole purpose of this program was not so much that everybody stays for 90 days, but up to 90 days to make sure that nobody is discharged to the streets or a drop-in center that has no beds. So that's an example, I think, of attention. Another one is the whole harm reduction thing, where Sarah and I've taken a lot of heat from people saying, no, if they relapse, let them stay there forever. What are you going to do? Kick them out? We've also heard from young people, many of them here and many of them at the Recovery High School, who said, no, we want a place that actually is supporting us in being substance free. And so again, if Jim relapses, but he says, hey, I'm sorry, I want to get back on track, then maybe Jim stays in that bed. We're not saying you kick him out right away. But what if Jim's attitude is, well, you know what? I'm not sure about this soul sobriety thing, and I think I do want to use a couple times a day. Someone might have to say, Jim, that's really cool. Let's help you get somewhere, but this ain't the place. Because when we wrote that report in 2018 that exposed that all the 78% of the young people homeless within 3 to 12 months, we were hearing from young people there saying, I went into inpatient. I was clean for the first time since this young man told me this, clean for the first time since I was 4 years old. And I know that because I used to pass the joint around to my dad's friends as they shot dope. So I figure I got a contact high at 4 years old. This was the longest I've been. The sky looked blue, and they sent me back to the drop-in center and the shelter where I could smell weed a block away. Jimmy T, how do I stay clean there? So there's another tension about how do we have an environment that supports young people and says, you know, if you want to try and stay substance free, this is the place to try and do that. And we're going to get you a long-term placement or housing model that supports that, but also has a harm reduction component to it, which this program does because we're providing medically assisted treatment. Some young people will be on Suboxone. That's different than we can bang dope in the back room as long as we don't use in the house, we're okay. That's a rule for a low barrier shelter or a long-term program where everybody knows that's the deal. We're trying to create one place in the state where young people who want to try. So anyway, I don't want to overtalk. I want to engage you all, and maybe we don't have time now, but that's the kind of thing that I think these providers are going to face, really hard ethical questions. But we got to have some guideposts. Like if Jim does not want to be clean and he's recruiting other young people to go get high behind the building, Jim might have to go somewhere else. That doesn't mean we don't like Jim and don't care for him. This just might not be the place. So I'll just open that up for a couple minutes and then we can move on. But I think we're doing good on time. So love to hear either the providers or just anyone weigh in on some of the what we just put out there.
Hey, Jim, it's Jessica.
Hey, Jessica.
What's up? And I've got
Introduce
Coco
yourself, please.
here. Coco's interning with us, so she's just listening. We're just so excited about everything we've been hearing and hearing you chat about like housing and whatnot. And I think it would be cool for the folks at Excelsior and Friends of Youth to, you know, create relationships with folks at Oxford and at folks with Weld. These are not ideal places for young adults to live, but they are the only sober housing options that are available because sober housing is not a popular thing, as everybody knows, here to fund right now. But, you know, I used to work with young people experiencing homelessness, and all of the supportive housing programs, almost all of them have like young people using drugs in them. And I had a lot of young people who would go to treatment and then come back, and the dealers would like literally be knocking on their windows and like dangling drugs in their face. It's just like the dealers circle these housing programs. And it's great that we have harm reduction housing programs, but like that is a really dangerous place, as Sarah was also saying, for people who are newly sober to go when their tolerance is really low. So forming really close connections to the folks at Oxford, making sure that the process for getting, Oxford has that 3-month program where your rent is free for 3 months, you know, like making sure that application process is really clear so that as they transition, they can get 3 months free for rent, that Weld knows about this, and that like there's a couple other sober housing programs in the area that like I just really want to see because there's no young adult program except for this one, but I want to see like the adult housing programs like really rally around these houses. How do we support these young people who are trying to do this absolutely magnificent thing at such a young age, you know? So just like building relationships, I think with abstinence focused programs could be really beneficial. It's definitely possible for young people to maintain sobriety in, you know, young adult housing programs through the YMCA and youth care and whatnot. But the truth is that most young people in those programs are using. And at the Recovery High School, our whole thing is like the opposite of addiction is connection and community. So just continuing to encourage young people to find connection and community with people who have the same goals as them, as abstinence, is going to be like key here. So hopefully, yeah, the adult housing sober community can really rally around what's happening. That would just be like a dream.
I'm so glad you introduced yourself with Recovery High School because you're doing phenomenal work over there. And I just want to say to the providers and to the people listening, you might want to be on it. Sarah and I are talking about creating a resource bank of advisors that if there was like, oh, this young person said something about Oxford House and we didn't know there was one in XYZ County, who might know about that? And we would check with these advisors so that just to make sure that we've got all the kind of the best brains, including young people with lived experience. But well, I'm sure we'll invite Johnny Ota to be on that. And I had invited Jessica, but she's moving, if that's still the story. But those of you who think you have a special expertise, and we'll also look at the Bridge Coalition as its own sort of resource bank that housing providers can come here and not share personal information, but say, we have a 24-year-old young person who wants to live with grandma, and we know that grandma's got a boyfriend who uses and comes over and visits. What do people think? And not that the provider will make the decision, but where's a safe place to go to ask those kind of those honest questions about how best to serve young people in a very complicated environment.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much again. And I want to echo what Jim said, but I also am realizing I'm going to invite I believe it's Jason from Walker, the Washington Alliance for Recovery Housing, because they do have, they grandfathered, I think, the Oxford houses into that organization for like eligible recovery houses in Washington. And I think we should hit him up, Jim, too, as like a network for the actual connections to the individual houses all around Washington State, so that we do have a touch point for each houses, that direct pathway. So thank you. And you reminded me about the 3-month free, which is again such a great thing for the providers and that case management, if that is that next step. And wait, where are you moving?
I'm not sure. My plan is to find something remote and bounce around because I don't know where I want to live. I was in Southern California prior to this, and I do like it down there, but it's expensive and a little apocalyptic with the climate. So I don't know if that's where I want to end up permanently. But yeah, I'll be bouncing around and hopefully we'll find something remote. So I'm on a federally funded grant right now and it was cut, but then a judge blocked the order. But it is coming to an end at some point naturally. And as Jim was saying, like so many things in the budgets, county, state, city, federal is being cut. So my position is gonna end. They're not gonna continue it.
Well, we'll miss you. You've been awesome. And maybe I still want to get out and see it before you go, but maybe that's offline.
If not next year, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Seth's position is not going anywhere. He's gonna continue to be funded by the county. So the school is not closing.
Okay, good. All right. Well, best of luck to you.
Yeah,
Thank
V and
you.
I do want to come back before the end of the school year, though, if that's possible.
Yeah, and if not, you can always visit Bridges during the summer because they do all the summer programming. So
I'm gonna
you can
email
always,
though, and see if we
yeah.
and Sierra might want to come. I'm thinking of the Seattle-based folks.
Yeah,
That-
Sierra, I was a case manager at Orion and Johnny was my mentor. So I was texting him, one of your old kids is on this meeting. It's so cool to see you.
Well, I was like, I love Johnny and I love what you guys are doing at the high school. I had the opportunity to be in Texas with a bunch of the young people that go to the high school for
Oh,
their senior trip
yeah.
this past or last summer, I guess. Now,
Yeah,
so,
at Ikipa. Oh, nice. That's
Yes.
so awesome.
Great. All right. Does anybody else have any comments or questions before we move on to our next speaker? All right. Well, with that, talking about small worlds and the interconnectedness of really these systems, I get to introduce Henry Walker from InReach. And Henry, know you will do a great presentation, but I also want to just quickly give a little historical context. Our late friend for many of us, Bridget Cannon from Volunteers of America. I remember working with Bridget through Away Home Washington with the Anchor Community Initiative that Jim started on the grant and the application for InReach. I think probably back in 2018, and just how excited Bridget was, and Matt Davis and myself and Bridget for Spokane to have it be a pilot for this program. And so it's just so heartwarming, although Bridget's not here, just to know that it still goes on and the work that you all do in Spokane County. So I'm really excited for the rest of the group to learn more. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, Bridget was a powerhouse. We all miss her a lot. We have a couple people who we're just interviewing now for her position. So it's big shoes to fill. I don't think anyone will be able to do what she did, but yeah, she was awesome. The InReach program has grown a lot since those years. I started at the InReach team in 2022 as a case manager under Isaac Fall. And when he left in 2023, I sort of took on a leadership position in the program, and then I was actually formally promoted to the supervisor. So I've been supervisor for the last, I guess it was March of 2024, so a little over a year. And I'll just tell you a little bit about kind of what we do. So InReach is a mobile case management team in Spokane. We've actually grown from when I started, it was just me and one other case manager, and Isaac as a supervisor. And then now I have under me, I have 6 case managers. So those case managers are out in the community, meeting with young folks to help them with their housing, with their employment, getting their vital documents. We also do a lot of behavioral health. So we have mental health clinicians on staff. We have all of our case managers or agency affiliated counselors, so we can get them a diagnosis if they need from a master's level clinician, and then our case managers can really help them with that, just having someone to talk to and kind of help guide them through some of those low level mental health issues, and help them with coping mechanisms and things like that. But a lot of what we do centers around the housing and the employment. So we're helping them with apartment applications, negotiating with landlords. We're helping them get their moving costs paid for. We're helping them maintain their housing. So having those conversations about, how do you maintain your housing? How do you pay your rent on time? How do you budget? How do you, cleaning, cooking, all of those things that are really important that maybe they didn't get. So really very broad range of things we can help with, but we're also helping them with, maintain their employment or get employment. Maybe they haven't had employment before, so we're helping them with getting interview clothes, and we're helping them do mock interviews, and we're helping them apply, polish up their resume, things like that. Very wraparound services. I would say there's more that we can do than that we can't. Really, the things we can't do are just limited by funding. We do have some flex funds that we use for different things, like I was saying, so like apartment applications, interview clothing, little things like that. And then we also have under me is also our diversion fund. So I have a diversion case manager who does all she does is diversion funding. So she will meet with people and help them get our diversion funds. So that's like our HPDF or our YDIP grants. And then we also very recently just got a re-up of our Homeward Bound grant, which is helping people to relocate to other communities. So that'll pay for plane, train, and bus tickets for people to relocate to other communities. We're going to be running that. We've run that for 3 years now, but this will be we got that replenished for 2 years. So we'll have that for the next few years. And we're also applying for an adult HPDF, so we'll have hopefully some more diversion funds for folks. Yeah, I don't have like a super, I'm actually off today. I don't have this like super, nailed down presentation for you guys, but I'm happy to answer any questions. That's kind of the gist of what we do. We also do, I guess we also do office hours in school. So a lot of what our program is dedicated to is kind of helping people to transition. If they're transitioning out of a behavioral health facility or a drug rehab or anything like that, we're kind of helping them, like you were talking about with the bridge, we're helping them kind of reintegrate easier. So the goal of many of our grants, we have several different grants, but the goal of many of them is for people exiting systems of care like mental health facilities, drug rehabs, juvenile justice, things like that. So one of our goals is to help people reintegrate easier. So whether that means, stabilizing their housing with some diversion funding or helping them get a job or whatever it is, we'll help them get there. We actually have a formal partnership with Spokane Municipal Court and Spokane Juvenile Court. So we get juvenile justice and adult justice referrals from them. We have some formal referral contacts with like inland Northwest Behavioral Health. We get a lot from Pioneer. So we get a lot of different systems referrals. And like I said, we're just trying to help them reintegrate easier. We have a new building going up it'll be done in August. I think we're moving in September. I won't be moving in. I'm actually moving on from this role. I'm going to grad school in August, but we have a new building going up and our team will be moving in there in August. That building will have a new crosswalk shelter, which is huge. We'll actually also have some transitional housing units there for our team. So for those folks who are exiting a system of care like juvenile justice or an inpatient treatment facility, they'll have a place to land for 60 days, something like that. So that's coming down the pipeline. We'll be integrating that within the next year or so. But yeah, does anyone have any questions that I can answer about our program?
I'm just gonna jump in and just say, will you make sure whoever's gonna take your spot, and I see Rachel has her hands up, will you put me in contact with them? Because I'd love to connect with, especially Lauren, your team, because I just feel like there's gonna be a lot of overlap and maybe population, or maybe it's the same young people too. So I think I can see some great partnerships happening with this program and theirs.
Yeah, definitely. We've actually had quite a few referrals. Lauren, you said you were from Excelsior, right?
Yeah.
We have had a lot.
And reached out to you the other day to touch base, so we're all connected.
Oh,
Perfect.
Yeah, we've had quite a few referrals from actually when I was a case manager, a lot of my clients, I had a lot of young people from Excelsior and they were some of my favorite clients because they were actually interested in getting out. I mean, they had to get out because they were aging out of the program, but they were interested in getting out. They were always really polite and they were on it. So those were some of my favorite clients, but Excelsior is great. Um, and then yeah, I will make sure to connect you with it's actually they're kind of splitting my position into two, which I don't know what that says about me or what I've been doing, but they're splitting my position into two people. So someone will be handling the like all the grants and compliance and things like that, and then someone else will be handling my team as a supervisor. So I do both of those things, but some they're just splitting them, and so I'll connect you with both of those people. Um, but yeah,
Perfect. And then we had Rachel and then Jim.
okay.
Hey, Henry. This is Rachel Baxter with HCA. So I actually recently just met with Fawn and Dana and a
Yeah.
couple others at VOA since HCA is the contract manager for Crosswalk 2.0 as well as the teen pregnancy program. I am wondering if you could speak about the behavioral health stabilization component to the programming, as well as I believe you guys are having an open house or a kickoff August 28th. So I
Yeah.
wanted to confirm that with you as well. And to say that I definitely have talked to Fawn and Dana about attending the Bridge Coalition and meeting with NorthStar as well as Excelsior, and hoping we can, when each has their kickoff, that we can kind of invite each other to those.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That kickoff date sounds right. I won't be at VOA by that point. So I honestly anything past July 31st, I'm kind of like not worried about. But that sounds right. I know we're doing like a big community kickoff, and I know that it's later in August, so that sounds right. Um, and yeah, so the stabilization, it's very early stages right now because actually the way it's going to work with the new building is so the first floor of the new building, it's by the way, the new building's awesome. If you get a chance to go see it at the kickoff, it's gonna be awesome. I've already toured it, but the building's huge. I don't know if you've seen the original crosswalk shelter, but the donation room of our new shelter is bigger than the entire crosswalk shelter is now. So and that's just the donation room. So like they'll have actual beds, not Murphy beds. They have an entire room for their like a locked room for their skateboards and bikes. Um, there's a big fireplace, so it feels like a home. Um, there's just a lot of really amazing things. There's a big classroom, testing rooms for their to get their GEDs, and then all of our staff will be there. So it'll be like right down the hall, rather because right now VOA is kind of splintered out. So our foster youth program is over at DSHS. My team's over at the young adult shelter, but we've moved around a bunch. We have a bunch of different programs all at different locations, but with the new building, they'll all be in the same building. So if you need to send someone over to a different program, you walk them down the hall. It's gonna be awesome. But where I was going with this is that first floor will be the shelter. It'll be offices, but it'll be mostly shelter and things for the youth. The second floor is going to be all individual apartment type units. They're not really apartments because they don't have a kitchen, but they're kind of like dorms. They call them college dorms, even though none of the kids are going to be in college necessarily, or some of them might be, but they're not really college dorms necessarily. They're just dorm style units. Those will all be for people who are transitioning out of that program. But for the first year, because we're remodeling our Alexandria's house, which is basically a group home for young mothers, those units will be used for the Alexandria's house moms. So those will be used for them until we finish the remodel of their house. And then once they're done, they'll be like transitional units, and some of them will be for our program. And then the third floor is all admin. But yeah, if you get a chance to go to the grand opening, please do. It's a really cool building.
Great. Thanks. Jim and then MJ.
Great. Mine's mostly just kudos and thank you. And I know the new building was so important to Bridget and Fawn, and you've all worked so hard on it. I first visited Crosswalk in the 90s, and yeah, it's a tiny little spot. And then you added the bigger
Cracker box.
kitchen, and So really good stuff over there. As I recall, and I want to check this out because I think it's so creative that we all know what outreach is. And then I remember, I think it was during the 100-day challenge, and maybe the Anchor community work, but they started talking about InReach, and it was such a creative frame, including I thought you all were going into DCYF offices to make sure young people knew about EFC and that sort of thing. So I don't know if that's still happening, but the point that you're actually going into schools, and these schools, a lot of people do that, but the creative part about kind of in reach to these other system partners just was so creative, and I'm really uh, grateful for the work you guys have done to grow that so large. Just wanted to say thank you to that.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy since I started to now. It's grown a lot. I mean, our team has tripled. And our community contacts have grown exponentially. I'm really proud of the partnership we formed with juvenile justice and municipal court, because we've always gotten folks from the juvenile and adult justice systems, but they've never been really formalized referrals. It's always been kind of like they show up at the shelter because they don't have anywhere to go. And so having this more formalized partnership where, okay, you're being discharged from jail, or you're being discharged from your probation officer, whatever, they're sending you over directly, or we're actually going and meeting you at, juvenile justice, or, down at the courthouse. We're meeting you, we're helping you navigate where you're going to go tonight. And hopefully once we have those transitional units, it'll be actually, you're getting out of jail, we're taking you over to Crosswalk. You're going to stay in this transitional unit until you get on your feet. But yeah, we're really proud of those new partnerships, and things are always changing, but we try to do a lot of outreach, and we're still pretty involved with like DCYF and all those folks. I do outreach constantly. That's like half my job is just going out and delivering flyers. But yeah, we're definitely growing still, and hopefully we'll keep growing, and the new building will be a better launch pad for us.
I just have one thing to say, Jim. Bridget was a big thing on the InReach, and it was during that 100-day. And she'd sit in meetings and go, "We're going in, and in that voice." And I remember because we at the inpatient I was at, we had the first MOU with this program in a residential inpatient behavioral health, and we were like, we did it, we got in. So I definitely want to come to the VOA opening again. I miss Bridget. I'm so happy for her and for you guys too. And then MJ, I'm going to go to you. And then we have our next guest speaker, which I'm excited to announce. And then we'll keep going. So MJ, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is MJ Negron. I'm part of NorthStar Advocates. And my question is for Henry. Specifically, are there any types of requirements for being in reach, like in the transitional housing portion?
Yeah, so specifically with that, like the transitional housing units, the requirements of that will just be that you came from a system that you're transitioning out of a system of care. So out of an inpatient facility or out of jail. But in general, our InReach requirements are just 12 to 24 and experiencing unaccompanied McKinney-Vento homelessness. So a lot of our folks are couch surfing or doubled up, or in an unsafe or unstable situation. Pretty much, I mean, we can take pretty much anybody into our program if they want our services. Basically, we consider if they're accessing our services, their housing is unstable. So we consider all the folks that are accessing our services to be in unstable housing. So yeah, pretty much any 12 to 24-year-old who is, struggling with their housing in any way is our eligibility criteria. And then for a couple of our grants, like for our diversion funding, so we have one fund right now that's for under 25, and then one that's going to be refunded, which is 12 to 24. So there's different requirements for the diversion funding. And right now we only have the one that's 25 and under, but along with that, you have to have been in a system of care for that funding source. So it's a little strange, but the end of the fiscal year is coming, and we're going to get refunded with some of our grant money.
Okay, yeah, and the other thing is like, is there anything that you have to do differently for those that are under the age of 18?
Like case management wise?
Case management wise or housing wise? because
Yeah.
usually it requires like permission from parents and stuff like that, unless like
Yeah.
you're emancipated. So
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad you asked that actually, because I meant to talk about this. So yeah, our program is one of the only ones that goes, it's young adults, but it's also minors, right? So, and I appreciate you bringing that up because it does look a lot differently when someone's under 18. Because when someone's 18, it's like, okay, if you have income or if you have, subsidized housing, you can get into an apartment like immediately, right? But with minors, obviously you can't sign your own lease. So housing them looks a little different. It really depends case by case. I mean, everyone is case by case, but a lot of times what we'll do is an informal host home, we call it. So we'll use our diversion funding to stabilize them living with someone who will, keep them until they can either make some money or maybe they'll turn 18 and then they can be on their own. So like let's say you have a friend or an uncle or a coach or anyone, we'll have that kind of diversion conversation about, who would be upset that you're in this situation right now. Can we call them? Can we figure out, an alternative housing situation? And if they're, yeah, that, they can stay here, but, we would need some money for the extra food or utilities or rent or whatever it is. We'll help them with a set amount of money and stabilize the housing that way. So we'll basically pay someone to keep you. That's usually what happens with our under 18 folks, or if they're 16 and they're pretty ready to just be on their own, we'll help them with their emancipation process. So we have had several young people who have gotten emancipated with our program. We work with a team in Spokane called Team Child with that. They've helped us a lot. And so they'll actually help with that emancipation process. But of course, that's a big process. It includes like proving your financial stability, proving you're getting your education done. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. So we help them with all those things, and then Team Child helps them with the actual legal process. And we've had a couple people get emancipated through us, and then then it's just like helping any adult. So yeah, it really looks a lot different with young people, but we have to get a little creative.
And I'm going to go ahead and jump in just because we're a little bit late, which is so great because it's been great conversation. But I want to make sure because we do have another presenter that I'm going to introduce. So if anybody has any questions, Henry, I'm sure they can reach out to you or to me and I can get them to you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. Our next presenter is Tristan from the Washington Recovery Alliance. And I know, Tristan, I believe you came on late, so I look forward to having you learn a little bit more about NorthStar. But for right now, we're very excited to learn about you. I also do want to let you know that this is recorded. And so we do share this out to a large group. We had a couple people jump off at that 2-hour mark at the 2 o'clock hour. And yeah, but I will send this out to everyone, but just want to fair warning, it is recorded.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you all for giving a little bit of the space today. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and hope that y'all can follow along with my deck here. Can everyone see slides okay?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So, hey, everyone. Thanks again for giving me a little bit of time today to talk about my work at the Washington Recovery Alliance. So my name, I'm Tristan Cycle. My pronouns are they, them, or he, him. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Public Policy at the Washington Recovery Alliance. I'm in recovery from mental health challenges. I've been adversely impacted by the criminal legal system around drug use, and I have also created and led several community organizations all about drug policy reform, harm reduction, and recovery. And so these are some of the experiences that led me to start working with the Washington Recovery Alliance. So now let's share a little bit more about what this organization is all about for folks that haven't heard of us previously. So the Washington Recovery Alliance, or WRA, we are a recovery advocacy nonprofit that engages people across Washington state to build both a community that celebrates and advocates for behavioral health recovery. So together we advance mental health and substance use recovery by changing public understanding and shaping pro-recovery public policy. And so this helps us, achieve our vision of, ensuring that recovery can be a reality for all, right? When we give folks the right supports at the right times. So this presentation today is just going to provide an overview of the work we do at the WRA. It's going to provide pro-recovery policy updates from the last legislative session. And we're also going to offer ways for community members to engage with our work going forward. Okay. So who are we at the WRA, or who does our community represent? So our community that comprises at the WRA largely consists of folks in recovery from mental health condition or a substance use challenge, co-occurring behavioral health challenge, families and loved ones of folks who have been impacted by these conditions, behavioral health service providers, and our many allies. Truly, all are welcome to join the WRA and get connected with their local or regional recovery coalition, because we are a coalition-based organization. So we have more local and regional ways for folks to connect with us really across the state. And so that leads me to this slide. So like I said, we have coalitions across the state included in our membership. Our coalitions serve the key role in helping us advance our mission at a more local and regional level. And they also assist us in mobilizing their community members to show up for WRA state level advocacy and event opportunities when they arise. And so the slide here is just going to show where all of our active coalitions are based. And so if one exists near you, we strongly encourage anyone interested to become involved with their local recovery coalition. And you can always go into the WashingtonRecoveryAlliance.org to learn a little bit more about those coalitions and get connected with them. But yeah, you can see here, I got the logos of some of our coalitions, kind of reflecting the area in which they serve. So we in the bottom right here, Benton Franklin Recovery Coalition covering those two counties. We have Central Washington covering a good chunk of North Central Washington, Pierce County, King County, Snohomish County, and then we have 3 of the Olympic Peninsula counties represented here as well. And we also have an island recovery coalition. So all kinds of places. And I just will also point out there's a lot of the map that isn't covered. So we're always looking to launch new coalitions. And so please feel free to reach out to me if maybe you're interested in getting a coalition started in your community. Right. So one way that we advance our mission of changing the narrative around how recovery and our adjacent communities of people who maybe are using actively using substances, or folks with mental health challenges are perceived, is through hosting community building events, things like Recovery Day at the Mariners. So at our Recovery Day at the Mariners 2024, we started that day out with a rally and a resource fair over here in Seattle at Occidental Park. That was followed by a march to the T-Mobile Stadium. And then we had a pre-game community tabling area for our attendees at T-Mobile Stadium that were really highlighting behavioral health resources that were available in community across the continuum of care. So thinking about prevention, harm reduction, treatment, recovery support services, all of that being offered at this event. And so last year we had over 2,500 people come out to this event. So it's just a really great way to show the public at large that people can and do recover, right? And so we are hosting this event again on Sunday, September 14th. That is during Recovery Month, which is September. And so I just encourage anybody on the call today that would like to join us at that baseball game to please mark your calendars and get your tickets soon. That is something you can acquire now. Yeah, so what else do we do? Well, we also initiate and support social media campaigns. So we did a series last year that highlighted people's gifts of recovery and the various things that got them in recovery and the things that they're grateful for that, now that they are in behavioral health recovery. And we also did a campaign during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic around encouraging folks in the recovery community to get vaccinated and boosted. And more recently, the King County Recovery Coalition has begun a podcast series. It's called the King County Recovery Conversations. And this really is an opportunity to focus on personal experiences, resources, and supports that are available for those who are seeking to overcome substance use or mental health challenges. Oh, there it is. Yes. And then so we also focus on things like traditional media, like TV, radio, and print are some of the other ways that we have sought to change public understanding for our community. And really, we're just always looking forward to new opportunities to speak with the media in support of our community. Yes, and there it is there. And yeah, lastly, our recovery advocacy training series, in addition to focusing on legislative advocacy, it will also teach people how to effectively advocate with the media and use pro-recovery stigma-free language, which is just super useful when thinking about any kind of recovery messaging. So that is embedded in a quarterly training that we provide. And I have this little graphic here. That's one of our art tables that we had operated at the King County Behavioral Health Legislative Forum that was hosted last year. So we do get involved with that event, and we help facilitate some of the pre-event activities that are done that day. And it's just, that's another great event to get to connect with some of the legislators that work in and around King County. So encourage anybody on the call today to check out that when it happens again in the fall. Okay, and so this is just some pictures from Recovery Day at the Mariner, some of our past events. So like I said, we have a service fair at the very beginning, and it offers all kinds of services that are free to community. There is no cost to participating in the service fair. And then we do have a bunch of activities and resources actually at T-Mobile Park for folks that are able to get a ticket and participate in that way. And we also have work with a lot of different community organizations to comp tickets to folks, right? And make sure that anybody who wants to go to the game can participate. So there's ample opportunity regardless of folks' income. Yeah, so some cool images there. All right, so of course, another huge part of how we do our work is fighting for pro-recovery public policy. So we host free trainings each year that teach attendees how to tell their mental health or substance use challenge story in a way that will actually move lawmakers to act. And we also teach folks how to become effective legislative advocates. So really communicating, how does a bill become law in the state of Washington? What are the various different opportunities that you can play as a community member and advocating for change throughout that process, right? And so this training does focus on the state level, right? And is in the context of behavioral health, but we often remind folks that are taking the training that the tools taught in it are really applicable at various levels of government and are useful for advocating for really any social cause you care about. And we do have our next, what we call Elevate Recovery Advocacy training. It's going to be held just next month on June 17th from 5 to 7:30 p.m. So for folks that are working during the day, you can definitely still check out that training. And I encourage anybody on the call that would like to, go to that training or sign up or let their community members know, you can go to the WashingtonRecoveryAlliance.org and you can find the event registration under the event section of our website. But yeah. So these trainings are going to be a really important way to prepare our community members to become recovery advocates, right? And that's helpful for a variety of things that they'll do during each legislative session and beyond. But it also helps us in preparing people to join us in attending an annual lobby day that we host in the state capital of Olympia, which we affectionately refer to as RAD, so Recovery Advocacy Day. And so this event, it usually occurs in the winter, and our last one was hosted on February 6th. And this event consists of the WRA. We will schedule the lawmaker meetings for our attendees based on the districts that they place in when signing up for our event. And we will also provide these attendees with the pro-recovery behavioral health priorities and legislation that they'll then advocate for. So you get to get prepared, you get to know exactly what it is you're going to ask for, you get to feel successful in asking it, and then you actually get to, ask your lawmaker for their support on key behavioral health legislation and funding that impacts our community. And as I will communicate in a couple slides down the road from here, every time we show up for Recovery Advocacy Day, at least since I've been with the organization back in 2022, we almost always get some win for our community, right? So it really shows the power of what happens when we get enough people in community to show up and speak their truth to people in power, in a guided way, of course. And so, strongly encourage anybody that would be interested in sharing their story to drive urgently needed change to, sign up for some of our e-newsletter and follow us on social media so you can be informed when we do get our next Recovery Advocacy Day scheduled. And so obviously that kind of builds into this next point here. So we help arrange meetings with local lawmakers, also federal lawmakers, all kinds of different levels of government lawmakers whenever it's applicable. And we'll also prepare our experts when testifying on critical legislation to help advocate for services or needs in our community. And we also do this to help fight back against misinformation or stigma that stymies new or expansion of services. Things like citing challenges around behavioral health facilities and harm reduction services. Yeah, and so we also ensure that people in recovery are well represented in stakeholder groups and task forces, especially those surrounding drug, behavioral health policy, housing. And the goal of doing so is to empower our community members to play a more leading role in developing new policy that will ultimately directly affect them. Yeah, and so that builds into that last point. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick image of what it can look like when we show up together, right? So this is actually our group picture together at Recovery Advocacy Day 2025. You can't really see me because I decided to go in the very, very, very far back thinking that I could be seen with my sign all the way up there, and turns out you can't. So food for thought for next year. But as you can see, we get hundreds of people who show up for this event every year. And I was really proud to see this turnout from this most recent session because that day, it was a snow day, right? And there was a good chunk of Washington that was inaccessible by snow. And yet we had more people show up to this RAD event than our last year RAD event. So it really speaks to, the power of this moment and why people want to do this so much. And so I want to talk a little bit more about the 3 legislative and funding priorities that we actually showed up to advocate for at our last Recovery Advocacy Day. And I'm also proud to say that two of the 3 of these actually were successfully passed by the legislature and the governor this session. So we're very proud of that. But yeah, here are the 3 things that we focused on. So 1, quality recovery housing expansion through creating a capital budget fund. So for those that don't know, recovery residences are home-like environments that promote healthy recovery from substance use disorder and supports people recovering from substance use through the use of peer recovery support. It's been shown that living in recovery housing for 6 months post-treatment or incarceration increases the chances of sustained substance use disorder recovery by as much as 10 times. While unfortunately, the demand for recovery housing in Washington far outpaces the supply. And so before this last legislative session, there had been no investment in our state for recovery housing using capital budget funds. And now our state has made quite a substantial investment, which I will be sharing in our next slide, around this really important recovery resource. But the whole goal of this priority was that we could use the capital budget to fund the acquisition and repurposing of properties to become recovery homes so that financial equity can be built and earned and retained within the recovery community, because most recovery homes are actually rented by private landlords. So if we could actually create more capital costs and more capital support, we can actually retain the homes within the recovery world, and then that equity can be used to further expand access to recovery homes. And so we also showed up at Recovery Advocacy Day to advocate for expanding access to peer support services system-wide. So what are peer support specialists? Well, these are highly trained healthcare professionals who are thriving in their own recovery from behavioral health conditions and who work to provide hope. They provide motivation, treatment engagement, care coordination, and system navigation for folks that are currently experiencing mental health or substance use challenges. Oftentimes when people go to treatment, they'll be given a host of things that they have to do on their own, but not given a whole lot of support of how to do those things. And so peers are kind of this magical entity that can help support the many different things that we often don't consider when getting somebody effective, successful, long-term healthcare for their substance use or mental health challenges. And so this priority was reflected in House Bill 1427, and that sought to expand peer access or expand access to peer services by ensuring that network access to peer services is given priority in Medicaid reprocurement. So starting in July, primary care clinics and hospitals will be able to start billing for peer services for the first time through commercial insurance and through insurance, right? Unfortunately, these hospitals and primary care clinics would be unable to really start doing that without some training and support on how that shift and billing is going to look for them. And so this would also set about a little bit of funding to do a training for these primary care settings so that they can understand how to use peer services and how to adequately bill for peer services using the new insurance, which will be, again, available to them starting in July. And it does a host of number of wonderful things for our community, but I only have so much time today, so I won't talk about all of this. But the bill also will ultimately save the state money by maximizing insurance billing for peer programs through insurance and Medicaid that are now currently reliant on general state funds, which for folks that don't know, the general state fund and the operating budget here in the state of Washington has been facing a deficit. So that can really impact the availability of services when those peer programs are entirely reliant on these general state funds. And so lastly, I just want to highlight our other Recovery Advocacy Day priority. So we sought to generate targeted revenue to fund specific behavioral health services. So we really, we saw that there is a need to sustain existing services because our state was facing a looming budget cuts, right? Because of a deficit in the operating budget. So because of that, we sought to support various potential means to generate targeted revenue to help fund behavioral health services. I will say the priority was eventually reflected in House Bill 2072. That ultimately did not pass through the legislature, but this bill sought to sustain and expand behavioral health services by levying an opioid impact fee on opioid manufacturers, though it's important to be mindful here that there is an exemption on medications for opioid use disorder, so that would have in no way been impacted. This bill, like I said, ultimately did not pass, but the expected cuts in essential behavioral health services, like things like the Recovery Navigator program, definitely indicate that we must continue building awareness on the need to generate revenue specifically for behavioral health services. And this is also really important because, as many of us are aware, there is going to be most likely some pretty substantial cuts to Medicaid, which is funding a good chunk of behavioral health services, and that is expected to be coming soon. So because of this really amplifies the need to generate revenue at the state level, specifically for behavioral health services. So we do intend to focus this interim, the time between legislative sessions, on this issue, and are trying to build power and support around why we need to raise revenue for these services. So if anyone's ever interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me, and I have some opportunity for you. Yeah. So I just want to quickly share about our wins this legislative session. So the Recovery Navigator program, this is a public safety program that basically brings free booking diversion to all 39 counties in Washington state. And so through the Recovery Navigator program, law enforcement can connect individuals with chronic criminal legal system contact and or those who are engaged in illicit drug use to behavioral health care and wraparound support services. Earlier this session, the Recovery Navigator program was at risk at being cut entirely, as the state Senate had had offered a budget of $0 for the next 2 years. And so thanks in part to our own community's advocacy and a host of other community partners, the final budget proposed by the legislature and signed into law by the governor restores 80% of its previous funding over the next 2 fiscal years, which is pretty exciting because the House position was 90% funding, the state position was 0, or the state Senate. So between 90 and 0, landed at 80%. We're pretty proud of that outcome. So we also saw historic investment in the recovery housing. For the first time in our state's history, we saw a substantial investment in the final capital budget in recovery housing. So what this spelled out to was $10.2 million for competitive grants to expand access to quality evidence-based recovery residences statewide. We also saw $3.8 million specifically directed for new recovery residences at the Benton Franklin Recovery Center, which is actually being operated by one of our recovery coalitions. So that's exciting. But yeah, these funds will help ensure that more people have access to safe, stable, and recovery-centered housing. And a couple of bills got passed this legislature that I want y'all to be aware of. And so here they are. House Bill 1427, already discussed, does a number of things to support expansion of peers in various community sectors. So we were very excited that that was signed into law. And then House Bill 1432, this is around strengthening mental health and substance use disorder care protections to create true parity between insurance coverage of physical health and behavioral health needs. It does a number of things to make that happen, but I'm mindful that we're running out of time. Yeah, so, there's another support item that we supported. I can go back real quick, and that was Senate Bill 5219. And so this is around expanding community parenting alternative to 18 months across the board for folks exiting prisons throughout the state so that people have more time to integrate back into their community. Okay, so for my last slide here, I just want to offer a few ways that folks can get better engaged with the WRA in terms of our advocacy and public policy work. So we are actually working on an effort to raise awareness and arrange special lawmaker meetings in the interim to discuss the need for legislation that both protects life-saving harm reduction services, as well as to help build support for ways to generate revenue to address those cuts in essential behavioral health services. So I just encourage anyone on the call today, if you're interested in either of those opportunities, please feel free to reach out to me. You can drop my email in the chat, but it's just Tristan@WashingtonRecoveryAlliance.org. Again, I'll drop that in the chat there. And I just want to, extend that. You can reach out to me personally, but I also facilitate a monthly meeting that's open to the public. It's on the last Tuesday of each month from 12 to 1. So I actually did my first one today. I'll be doing my next one in June. So that's a great opportunity to learn about pro-recovery information from the federal, state, and local level. So I encourage you to check that out, and you can sign up for that event on our website as well. Just want to do a quick shout out. There is a couple of exciting upcoming events. I did mention the advocacy training that I will be leading next month, but an event that's coming up a little bit sooner, our King County and Snohomish County coalitions are teaming up to offer a film screening of Recovery City. This is going to happen the very last Saturday of the month from 2 to 5 o'clock at the Black Box Theater in Edmonds College. It is a free event, so definitely encourage you to check it out. And it's going to be featuring an award-winning documentary, Recovery City, and that follows 4 courageous women on their journey through addiction, stigma, and recovery. I did mention earlier, but we have Recovery Day on the Mariners. That's September 14th, so feel free to mark your calendar. And yeah, you can follow the Washington Recovery Alliance or our coalitions on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the things. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. So thank you everyone for your time. And I know we're a little over time, or we're just at time. So I'm still available to answer any questions that anyone has. Yeah. I go ahead and stop my share.
Tristan, thank you so much for that information. I wish you had been at the beginning because I think there's so much alignment. I'm sure everybody is nodding. So I'm hoping you'll come maybe next month or at some point back to the coalition to kind of learn about a lot of the work that's been done with this group, because there's just a lot of alignment. And I would love if you could send me your slides and any of the dates that you talked about.
Yeah.
Just so I can include those in the meeting notes. But while we just have a couple people, does anybody have any questions before we all jump off? All right. All right, everyone. Well, Tristan, I look forward to talking with you more because
Absolutely.
Operation coming up. And thanks everybody for such a great meeting. And I'll get meeting out notes and the recordings out in the next week or so.
Thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a great